Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Father.
My name is Father Bob Grodnicki, and I am the pastor of the Church of St. Luke in Toms River. And I am happy to be here tonight. I think I am anyway. I am, that the bishop asked me to do this. A week ago, last Monday, I received a phone call, and the phone call was from somebody I knew, and he said, "And where were you 37 years ago today?" I get this phone call every year, and I always say to him, "I was in jail, waiting for you to come bail me out." And he said, "That's right." But he calls me every year, 37 years. Last year it was 36 years. And his name is Father Bill Waters. He's a priest from Villanova. And he was the director of the formation, what we called formation in the Augustinians when I was in the seminary. And I had only been there about 2 weeks. And I had one of those feeling sorry for myself days where I thought I should be the center of attention. So I decided to go out for lunch. Well, lunch consisted of, you know what it was, drinks. I went to, if you ever have been in Washington, spend any time right across from Union Station, there's a place called the Dubliner, an Irish bar. You know it more. And I spent quite a amount of time there, and then I went on. I don't know where I was after that. I went to a couple places after that, and so the next thing I know, I was arrested and I was put in jail, and I didn't know what was going on. I really didn't. So I was sitting there. It was a hot September night, and all of a sudden, the prior of the house, Jim Elliott, and Bill Waters, both priests, came to get me out. And on the way home, I was sitting there, and I thought I was in a peace demonstration. That's why I had gotten arrested. And I demanded to be arrested. I wanted my rights to protest. And the next morning, before we went to bed, that night, Bill said to me, "I want to see you at morning prayer tomorrow." He says, "If I have to get up, you're getting up after all this, spending up half the night." So I got up, and I went to morning prayer, sick as a dog. And then he said to me, "And don't go to school. Stay home. I want to talk to you later." Well, I thought that was, again, the beginning of the end for me. I had just gotten there. My boxes weren't even unpacked, and I blew it. And I didn't know what was going to happen to me. I was startled, scared, everything else. I said, "What do I do now?" And then he sent me to see someone in the afternoon. The Augustinians at the time had a high school, Archbishop Carroll High School, right across from Catholic U. And I went to see Jerry Duff, who was the prior of the house there. And he calmed me down, and he said, "You're going to spend the day here with me, with the rest of us, and then we're going to go out tonight." So he took me to an AA meeting. And then he said to me, "Well, what'd you think of it?" I said, "It was interesting. It was interesting." And he said, "Well, I'm going to pick you up tomorrow night, too." And I said, "Well, I don't know about that." And he said, "Oh no, you're going to go for 90 of these meetings." I said, "I can't do it." "Yes, you can." And I did 90 meetings in 90 days. And it was at first scary. I didn't know what to do. And I said to him, "I'm not like that. I'm not like that. I'm not like them at all. I don't need this." So the longer I went, the more I realized how much I did need it and how much I learned. But the whole thing of it is that most of us, if you're in the program, have been through this kind of experience. You know what it's about. The desperation that you feel. Being alone. Is it only me? That's why I picked this gospel. I selected the Lazarus story for the gospel because it's an allegory of our relationship with not only God, but with all of humanity and even ourselves. When we finally hit our bottom, what we call bottoms, for those of you who are not a member of the program, we are emotionally dead. We don't feel anything. Nothing registers. We feel hopeless. Many of us at that time were in despair, thinking that we were beyond all help and nothing could save us or no one even could do anything for us. There was no one that could save us. In the story, the gospel story that we just heard, Mary said to Jesus, "If only you had been here, my brother would not have died." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise." Martha, the other sister, said, "I know he will rise in the resurrection on the last day." And Jesus said, "I am the resurrection." And he raised Lazarus back. For those of us who have been there in that darkness, the people, ironically, the former drunks and addicts, were the people who helped us at that time. They took the place of Jesus in this story. They became Jesus with the message that they had for us about what we had to do. The problem is that Jesus has always been there in our lives, but we don't see him. Most of us had people speaking to us, but we did not listen. We thought, no, it doesn't apply to me. We all knew better, but we did not listen. I had the wonderful experience of working at the Hazelden Foundation in Minnesota for a year. I spent a year there, which is a well-known it's a treatment center for people suffering from addictions and all kinds of 12-step disorders. And I had the great experience of being there. And from there, I met all kinds of people. And Hazelden, if you don't know it, is the place that most of the training was done for counselors, and they were the ones who trained the people for the Betty Ford Center. Mostly everybody heard of the Betty Ford Center. They were also the people who were invited when the Iron Curtain fell down to go to Russia because of the problems that they had there, and Poland. They were also at the Rutgers School of Alcoholism teaching. They were the ones who put the programs together. And to actually have been there with them and work with them was an honor to be there and experience this. But it was also the people who were there, the counselors, the patients. In treatment, they tell us things we don't want to hear. I once heard a young woman who was a counselor on one of the units at Hazelden speak of what they call terminal uniqueness. Doesn't apply to me. She talked about how often we think of ourselves as exempt from everything. Oh, that's nice, but that doesn't, just like me in the beginning, I said, that doesn't, I don't need this, it doesn't apply to me. That's for them over there. We think we are the center of the universe at that stage of our lives. We are often like the people in the gospel, all the gospels that we hear about Jesus, the scribes and the Pharisees, and the people who would listen and say, well, we're not like them. That doesn't apply to us. And that's how we become. We don't want to hear the truth. The scribes and the Pharisees were good for that. I met one of the women who worked this was not a Catholic institution, by the way. There was a sister, Marie Goebbels, a sister of charity from San Antonio, who was on the staff, a permanent member of the staff there. They called her Goebbels. And she was on the long-term care unit, the Jelinek unit. I still remember all this, the Jelinek unit. And she came up with the phrase, just do it, long before Nike ever came up with it. As a matter of fact, when I was there in the 70s, the people there were wearing shirts, t-shirts that said, just do it. And she got that nickname because she would tell them, part of their treatment, well, you have to do this. You have to make amends, or you have to make peace with this. And that. Oh, I just can't do that. I just can't do that. And no, it's impossible for me to do. Yeah, I know, honey, you can't do it. But just do it. And that's what they called it. Just do it. I say that to my staff, and now they want to try it on the parishioners when they say, oh, no, we can't do it. Just do it. George Wells of Tebow, that unit, he made everybody take the words should out of their vocabulary. He would forbid them to use the word should. He would get mad when they said it. I can't tell you what he said. He said, should, figure it out. He says, don't should it, do it. You know, try speaking without the word should. It's almost impossible when you talk about anything to talk about something. It's always, well, I should go see that person. No, do it. I'm going to try. No, trying is lying. Do it. And it made people look at life in a whole different way. And that's what recovery does. Makes us look at life entirely different and really face reality and the part that we play in it. We often hear that expression, turn it over. I'm going to turn it to God. I'm going to give it to God. I'm not going to worry about it. And that's part of AA too, and the 12 steps. I'm turning it over to God, and I'm not going to let it get me down. The feeding of the multitudes in the gospel. Jesus said to them, when they said, we got to feed all these people, the disciples said it. What did he say? You do it. You can do it. And do it. They waited for him to do it. But he said, no, you do it. In other words, I taught you what to do, now you do it. One of the things about our religion is, the Catholic religion and any religion, is that forgiveness. That's what Jesus did. That's what he was famous for, forgiving everybody, no matter what they've done to us. Forgive them. And you know what? AA has those things too, the 4th and the 5th steps of what you got to do to get better. It's so amazing how comparable those steps are to our own faith. But they make them do it. Where we play around with it. But they have to forgive, and they know that. Or they're going to go right back to where they were. One of the things you learn from this whole thing is patience. Something that a lot of us don't have. That living a life like this teaches you to be tolerant of all kinds of situations and not get bent out of shape over every little thing that happens. If you want to keep it, you got to give it away. That's what they say. You got to share what we have, what we learn. And that's what our faith teaches us too. What Jesus talks about possessions. That we have to be aware of the people that have nothing. These are the things that got us there, not observing those things. Getting nuts over silly things that really don't matter in life. One of the things, I always ask this question at funerals. When I meet people, I always meet with the family before I go in to do the wake. I always say to them, tell me about what made them special. What are the things that stick out? And if they don't bring it up to me, I say, did they have a sense of humor? I said, because, God is described by many different qualities if we go through the scriptures. We see God, G-O-D, but there's much more to that word than G-O-D. He's described as the wind, happiness, laughter, cheer, joy, all these things. And Peter Berger, one of the modern day theologians, he's not so modern anymore, in his writings he said, when you see a person who has a sense of humor, they have found something that a lot of people never find in their life. You know what that is? The presence of God in their life. When people can be at peace and laugh. God is peace. We'll see that on the Christmas cards coming out. That's what it means. God is peace. So a person who has discovered God and has God in his life or her life is at peace. A sense of humor, I said. Two of the guys here, I saw them earlier and they came back. I thought they were leaving me, but you came back. The Wednesday night crew. They used to call themselves the Angry Men's Group, the Wednesday group. It's a 12-step group that meets at the parish. I said, do you still call yourself that? He said, no, now we're the old fat man's club. And they're here tonight. But they laugh about these things. And this is their life, their dedication, and what it is to helping other people find their way through this maze. Many people feel that have been in this situation that they are no longer worthy to be in the church. That we have burned bridges, too many bridges to go back. That God doesn't want us. We might feel that we are the greatest sinners in the world. And we are not. Nobody in this room is. Or we might be mad at God for some reason because we think God has abandoned us when we needed God the most. Many of us blame God for what happened because we think that God doesn't hear us. Being there for others who are having difficulty with life, including the religion, which sometimes have hurt people the way it was used against them in families. Being compassionate and understanding and not rushing to judgment is something we learn. Having patience, I said, with people. Isn't this what Jesus did and lived his life that way? He never got irritated the way we get irritated. Certain things bothered him, but he didn't snap at people. We need to act the way Jesus did in life. That's what recovery teaches us. If you want to keep it, you got to give it away. To be of service to others. And in every situation, as St. Ignatius says, we have to see the presence of God somewhere. God is there, but sometimes we have to look. The truth is, we abandon God. God doesn't abandon us in life. At St. Luke's Parish in Toms River, We now have 15 12-step groups meetings per week. We have at least one meeting a day, believe it or not. I never realized that we actually do have a meeting a day, at least one. On Sundays, we actually have 3 meetings a day. We have a men's meeting in the morning, a women's meeting in mid-morning, and then we have an AA group at night. I cannot take credit for any of that. I didn't do that. Many groups lost their homes during Hurricane Sandy, and we're desperately looking for new meeting rooms. I was being bombarded by requests, and I didn't want to say no. But then I remembered what Sister Rosemary Conley, who is a Mercy Sister, who is the president of Misericordia in Chicago, which is a place for people who, when they were little, had developmental disabilities, and now they're older, and it's like a city in a city. And I got to meet her, and I was talking to her one day, and I was telling her, I said, you know, Sister, I keep on getting all these requests about people wanting to have meetings at the place, and I don't know what to do. And she said, Bob, I have the same problem, but not with that. She said, I have problems. I never know how I'm going to pay the bills with the government slashing funds all the time. And she says, but you know what? This is what you got to remember. If you are doing the work of the Lord is not going to abandon you. I say that again. As long as we are doing the work of the Lord, God will not leave us. And she says, that's how I get through it every year. And somehow, she says, it happens. It's in the city of Chicago. They have the whole city involved, selling Tootsie Rolls at intersections. And you know what? And nobody's blowing their horns, like around here, when you stop. And she says, and somehow we meet the budget. So taking her advice, my staff, Kathleen Musio, said to me, what did Sister Rosemary tell you? I said, she said to me, as long as we're doing the work of the Lord, God will provide. So guess what? We started inviting all the groups to come in. We hadn't built yet the new facility. We were building an upstairs where we would have plenty of rooms. And so we were using every space that we could find to accommodate people, to be of service to others, to be of service to the community, to open up our doors of the Catholic Church, to say, yeah, you're welcome here. So we squeezed them in the chapel. We had them in the choir, where the choir sits. We had them every place we could find. Little rooms, we stuck them in there until finally we got the space and we did the building, and now everybody has plenty of space for their meetings. We never thought we could do it. But these are the people you meet along the way. Robert Frost said, home is the place that when you have to go there, they have to take you in. That's a pretty good model. That's what we're supposed to be, that model of church. That is what God called us to do. This morning, Cardinal Supich from the Archdiocese of Chicago tweeted Pope Francis's, what he said at the Angelus this past Sunday. He suggests that maybe we could write on the doors of our churches, here Jesus welcomes sinners and invites them to his table. Think about that one. We're thinking about making up banners and putting them in our church. Sinners are welcome. Everybody's welcome. That was the beginning song. All are welcome here. That's what it's about. That's what recovery does for us. It gets us to look at life differently. You know, I was thinking about this morning, And I began my ministry as a seminarian with this, thinking I was going to be kicked out. And 37 years later, here I am. As I start to think about, my retirement eventually. I don't know when, but soon. And guess what? I'm still talking about what I came in with. What happened to me in the beginning has been with me all this time, and it still has such an important part of my life, and has been throughout my entire ministry. Of how I've been able to, how God has blessed me with this, to be able to have this and do the things that we were able to do at the parish. All of us are capable of these things. It's something for all of us to think about.